It's the amazing Rico Brogna podcast with your host, Evan Roberts.
Rico Brogna, the number one wild card team in the National League, the New York Metropolitans, as the Mets win game 2 of this 4-game series against the Atlanta Braves. We will talk about the game, but there's a lot to discuss right now. A lot of Met news over the last 6 hours. They make a trade for a reliever. We get a bad injury news on a reliever. We get, obviously, the Kodai Senga injury as he's dominating the Atlanta Braves. There are new baseball rumors around everybody, including the New York Mets. So there's a lot to get to on this midnight, if you're listening live, edition of Rico Brogna. I am back from the game. I was in the building, another huge crowd at Citi Field, which is nice to see. Nice to see the people showing up. The atmosphere was electric. I took advantage of the season ticket benefit, one of the few that we have, and I got to watch the fireworks on the field, and both my boys made it. I was concerned as that game was trickling on late into the evening. I'm like, my God, is my 3-year-old going to be able to get through this? But he did. And then we got to see some fireworks. And then this Rico Brogna is happening only because as we were leaving the fireworks, there was a guy who said, "Hey, Evan, are you doing a live Rico?" And I said, I got to be honest with you. I don't know. It's been a long-ass day. I'm very tired. I'm not sure it's going to happen. And my oldest son, Jet, said, "No, Dad, you have to do a Rico." And then the guy was like, "Oh, I guess you're doing a Rico." So this is all because of my son, Jed, who is now sleeping anyway. So it doesn't even matter. So here we are. There is a lot to talk about. I want to take you through this evening because I don't know if you guys felt this way. I'm going to tell you how I felt. Citi Field is electric. The Mets go down 2-0 pretty early on when Adam Duvall, who's been in a massive batting slump, hits a 2-run home run. Okay, not exactly Panic City, but okay, the Mets are trailing 2-0. They put together just this remarkable third inning. And it all started on a bad defensive play by Austin Riley. But to Tyrod Taylor's credit, Tyrod Taylor. Oh, I'm in football mode, I guess. Tyrone Taylor's credit, he beats it out after Austin Riley has a little bit of a bobble. And it turns out to be such a huge play because Lindor essentially draws a walk. He got hit by a pitch. Then you see Charlie Morton lose the strike zone after that hit batsman because Brandon Nimmo walks on 4 pitches, 2-0 game, bases loaded, nobody out, JD Martinez up. And obviously just this electric moment as he swats one to right field on a 3-1 pitch, a ball that I did not think was getting out. I figured it'd be a sacrifice fly. Okay, great. It's 2-1. Big spot for Pete Alonso. And it just kept going and going and going. It obviously gets out. Grand slam. Place is rocking. 2 batters later, Jeff McNeil's ripping a double. Mark Vientos is hitting a 2-run bomb. Francisco Alvarez is hitting a home run. And while it may not be the 10-run inning on firework night against the Braves 24 years ago, an electric 6-run third inning. And then Kodai Senga goes to work. And so Citi Field probably felt this way on the TV as well, or if you were there, like a party. It was a real party atmosphere. The place is rolling. The place is rocking. The Mets are hitting 3 home runs in an inning. You have Kodai Senga, after he gives up the home run to Duvall, really going into domination mode. He's tacking up the strikeouts. He's throwing the ghost fork. And I had a vision. It was probably somewhere in the 5th inning. This vision of, holy crap, like the Mets have an ace. You know, let's not forget how good Kodai Senga was a year ago. You almost forget. I've spent very little time talking about Kodai on the Rico because I almost just was like, you know what? When he's back, and let him just prove who he is. Year 1 was a great year, but what's going to happen in year 2? Teams are going to make adjustments. Batters are going to make adjustments. And so I wasn't necessarily disrespecting Kodai Senga, but I was sort of forgetting about him. And as he was dominating in the 4th and 5th innings, striking guys out and going deeper into this game, because I'm looking at the pitch count at 59-5 or 59-4, and I'm like, wow, Kodai may be able to get through 6. I doubt he'll go to 7, but wow, what a great performance by Kodai Senga. And I'm starting to dream about the future, dreaming about this rotation being led by him. All of a sudden, you look at the rotation very differently. You look at Luis Severino and Sean Manaea and Jose Quintana, and there's like just a different feel towards them and a different feel to this rotation. And so I'm having these grandiose visions, and then we have the moment in the top of the 6th inning. And in that moment, Austin Riley hits a pop-up to first base, and my eyes are fixated on Pete Alonso. So I didn't see Kodai Senga go down, but I heard Kodai Senga go down. And for anybody in the building on this Friday night, you heard that gasp, that just like, oh, kind of moment. And I've had that at sporting events before. Obviously, Jet fans had it last year with Aaron Rodgers. For whatever reason, I have like this obscure reference that nobody will remember, but I'll use it anyway because why not? It's a midnight Rico. And Hoff's just going to hate this one. It was back in, I think, 2006. The New Jersey Nets had a center named Nenad Krstić.
You son of a bitch.
And Nenad Krstić tore his ACL like in the middle of a game, and you knew it. And I think it was a torn ACL, but again, no one cares. And there was a gasp that you heard at the Izod Center. And it was like this sick feeling. And there was a gasp at Citi Field. Did you get that through the TV off, or was that just something you experienced in the ballpark?
So I definitely heard it. It was weird because it was off camera, but I saw Pete. They obviously were focusing on Pete, and you saw Kodai run off, and it looked like someone collapsed, and we kind of didn't. I didn't see who because I wasn't really paying attention.
Right.
But you heard one of the I'm not sure if it was Keith or whatever. Like, oh no, and you did feel it when it happened. So, and then obviously you saw Kodai on the floor.
Oh, and like when I heard the gasp, I didn't know what it was either. And then I look down and I see him on the ground, and I'm like, oh my God. And without seeing it, and I just saw it for the first time, like literally right before we started recording the Rico, I was like, let me see the replay of this thing, because obviously they're not showing it at the stadium. I'm not taking my phone out. I got my 2 sons with me and my wife. So I saw the replay. But when I didn't see the replay, my vision was, oh my God, the guy tore his Achilles. Or I'm thinking about that Brave pitcher, Mike Soroka, when he came off the mound during the pandemic at Citi Field. And that injury basically ruined his career. So there was an audible gasp at the ballpark. There was a kind of a depression at Citi Field. Like it went from a fiesta to a morgue. And my wife, who doesn't know much about baseball, says, what happened? And I said, you know what? Here's a scary thing, baby. I'm going to be perfectly honest about what I said to her. I said, he goes down and he tears an Achilles, which is the fear. And look, it doesn't sound like it's an Achilles. The Mets are saying it's a calf. But I looked at her, I said, if he tears an Achilles, it could ruin his career. Like you could be talking about a moment that isn't just a bad injury for the 2024 New York Mets, but this could affect Kodai Senga for the rest of his career. And she's like, my God, really? And I said, look, I don't know. I just saw him go down in a heap, or I saw him on the ground after going down in a heap. I have no idea. What was encouraging is that he got up. And then when he got up, and I thought it was really classy, he shakes every infielder's hand, almost like, hey, I think I'm okay. He walks off with a slight limp, which, again, doesn't mean he's okay. It could still be the worst thing in the world. It could still be a torn Achilles or a torn ACL or God knows what else. But that was my fear in the ballpark at the time. I was already saying, you know what? I don't expect him to pitch this year. And I know that's a very extreme opinion to have, but in the moment, like what, who knows? So I'm saying to her, I just hope he's okay for the future. I just hope this isn't, a career altering injury the way we've seen it before, whether it was Mike Soroka of the Atlanta Braves back in 2020 or whoever you want to come up with. Now, obviously, as we sit here without any other update besides the Mets are calling it a strained calf, and the fact he's going to go for an MRI on Saturday, we could sit here and speculate. I'm not going to speculate. The only thing I will tell you is he's not going to pitch for a while. I mean, let's use our brains for a second. Like the idea that Kodai Senga is just going to miss a start and be okay, to me, would be lunacy. That's not going to be the case. He's going to be out for a while. And so I go back to the opinion I had at the beginning of this discussion. You almost have to forget he exists. That's how David Stearns has to think. That's how we as Met fans have to think. And it's a real buzzkill. It's a buzzkill for him, obviously, more than anything, because he's a competitor. The guy wants to pitch. The guy works his way back. He comes back. He's dominating the Braves, especially in such a great environment. And now he's out again. But from a baseball standpoint, this went from something kind of like cool and new for us, having a top-of-the-line ace. At least that's the way he was pitching, and certainly that's the way he pitched a year ago. And I guess the good news is we go from what felt like this bonus to back where we've been all year. Like, when you really think about it, if Kodai Senga is going to miss an extended period of time, and I'm going to make the assumption he is, we'll find out, or at least we'll get more details that maybe help us find out later on Saturday. But all it really does is send us back to where we've been for the first 4 months of the season. A rotation that's average, a rotation that does not have a true ace, and a team that has to win by scoring a lot of runs, which they've done. Which they've done so much, they passed the Atlanta Braves on this Friday night. And as the game was going on, and obviously Eric Orsi comes in, immediately gives up a home run. And I am thinking, is this guy ever going to register an ERA? Or is it going to remain infinite? And then he walks Matt Olson on 4 pitches. And I'm sure I wasn't the only one who's now fearing the game. Despite being up 8-3 at this point, 8-2 when Orsi first came in, you're starting to say, is this bullpen going to be able to hold it? Especially on the heels of the Dednil Nunez news, which we'll get to a little bit later on. Now, luckily, Orsi was able to get the last 2 outs. He was able to get through the 7th. Adam Ottavino wasn't great, but he was able to get through the 8th, helped out by a brilliant defensive play by Jose Iglesias. And then Jake Diekman's able to get through the 9th. And it wasn't pretty, and it wasn't easy, but they hold on. And so this bullpen, which is a problem, did not blow this game, and at least we're able to walk out of Citi Field after watching a nice fireworks show saying, hey, we've won 5 in a row. Hey, we're 55-48. Hey, we've passed Atlanta. So at least there's the good feeling of winning, but the Senga injury sucks. And I go back and forth. Like I said, it goes from, yeah, maybe it was just a bonus having Kodai Senga since they haven't had him all year and having that true ace at the top of the rotation. And all it really sends you back to is what the Mets have been for the last 3 months. But the problem is you start to dream big as this season continues to progress. That's what happens as sports fans. It's why, and I've said this a lot on the Rico, I've said this a lot on the Fan, you know, you could set your expectations wherever you want them to be, but expectations change. I can promise you this, and I said this in March, probably with most people laughing that I'm an idiot, and I said if the Mets make the playoffs, I don't care where they lose, the wild card round, the divisional round, the LCS, or the World Series, I'm going to be pissed off when it ends. I won't look at it immediately as, well, it's been such a great ride, I can't be annoyed. Like, that's the way I am as a sports fan. I think it's the way most of us are. So as this team continues to rise in the standings, as this team surpasses Atlanta, as Kodai Senga is dominating in the first 5 innings of this game, my brain's going towards, holy crap, maybe we can win it all. Now, say it's delusional, fine, but to lose that so quickly, to lose that possibility of having a top-line ace so quickly, absolutely sucks. And that's why I'm happy. I'm thrilled this team is playing well. It was a wonderful night at Citi Field. But, man, after Kodai Senga goes down, there was a little bit of a pall over all of us. Now, to quote the great Clint Capella, as he once said to the New York Knicks a few years ago, what you gonna do about it? It's a great quote Clint had. What you gonna do about it? And that is the other silver lining. David Stearns has time to do something about it. This team is wild card number 1. They are no longer trying to sneak in as a third wild card. Now, they may end up that way because the standings are really, really tight. They may be wild card number 1. They could end tomorrow as wild card number 3. So I fully understand this is a fluid situation when it comes to the National League standings. But if you are David Stearns, just like all of us, you have to watch this team and be inspired. You have to watch this team and say, I got to give them help. And look, my position hasn't changed. I'm not telling you the Mets should mortgage their farm system or be super aggressive in trading key young players for quick fixes right now. But you almost have to reward this room with help. And we saw the first little piece of help come in on Friday when they acquired Ryne Stanek of the Seattle Mariners. Now, a couple of things about Ryne Stanek. I'll tell you the good. I'll tell you the bad. I'll tell you my initial reaction. My initial reaction to the trade was good. That's a major league relief pitcher. My second reaction was, he hasn't exactly had the greatest year in Seattle. But the thing about relievers that gives me hope is that how many times have we seen relief pitchers traded at the deadline and then just all of a sudden have resurrections? And Ryne Stanek doesn't necessarily need a resurrection because, quite frankly, he's had good years. Ryne Stanek 2 years ago when the Astros brought him in had like one of the most dominant seasons you'll see from a reliever. So he's capable of it. Now, what would concern me is he's been dealing with a back issue, and that may have led to some of his recent struggles in Seattle. But look, overall, when you give up what they gave up, which is a non-prospect, which is a guy who's ranked 30th in their farm system, an outfielder who, Ryland Thomas or Ryland Bannon, I forget which one. Ryland Thomas is the guy they gave up. They didn't give up a lot. And that's good. That's the positive. That's why it's like, it really is a win-win. Like, they didn't give up a top prospect the way Seattle did for Yimi Garcia. They really didn't give up much. And when you look at the current state of this Met bullpen, and you look at how desperate they are to just add major league relief pitchers, Phil Maton and Ryne Stanek, the Mets got them for nothing. And what Maton and Stanek have in common is in some of the biggest spots, they've done it. In Houston, Ryne Stanek has pitched in the postseason every year since 2020. So you have a guy that certainly isn't going to be afraid of the moment. So to be fair, did the Mets add their answer in the bullpen? Look, I'm not going to deny that he hasn't had the greatest year in the world, but they added a major league relief pitcher. Eric Orzi came in to pitch today. Ryne Stanek will now take the roster spot of Eric Orzi. That's a huge upgrade. But that can't be it. Now, should they add a starting pitcher? It's a great question to ask right now, connecting the uncertainty of Kodai Senga. Keep this in mind. And Carlos Mendoza confirmed it after the game, and it certainly went through my mind when Senga went down. Senga being hurt eliminates the need for a sixth starter. So the truth is, you aren't replacing Kodai Senga in the rotation. You're just keeping whoever the sixth starter was going to be, first crack Tyler McGill, in the rotation. That's all you're doing. You know, Luis Severino, Sean Manaea, David Peterson, they're still there. Jose Quintana, can't forget him. They're still there. So the good news is, and that does change the bullpen as well, because as we've talked about, going to a six-man rotation was going to mean you will be one arm short in the bullpen. That is not the case anymore. But here's the other thing I think it does. We've had the discussion about Jose Budo, the thought about, I like Big Budo and I cannot lie. Do you move him to the rotation? Do you keep him in the bullpen? I think the combination, not the combination, but really Dednell Nunez going down with this injury, and we'll see how long he misses. Mendy said it should be a short visit to the IL. I certainly hope that's the case. I think that means you keep Budo in the bullpen. I do. Because even if they acquire another reliever, and I think they will, I don't think they're done. And I certainly think they're going to add an outfield bat. More on that in a few minutes. I think you need Jose Budo. I think you need that ability to get 6, 7, 8 outs out of the bullpen. And I think for now, Tyler McGill makes a start every 5 days, or you add a starting pitcher at the trade deadline. Now, I'm not giving up a lot for a Jack Flaherty, but Jack Flaherty was a guy I wanted prior to free agency. We talked about all the different options, the different buckets of starting pitchers that you could add. And Jack Flaherty and Luis Severino, to me, were both in that same area of they've done it before. They have a high upside. Get them on a one-year deal. You never know. I do not think the Mets are going to be investing in the Garrett Crochet market, though they could give him the extension he wants. The balls on that guy to basically say, if I'm traded, you better give me an extension. So I don't think they're in on Tariq Skubal or Garrett Crochet, but if they could add a solid back of the rotation arm, you're not getting an ace. That's okay. I'm not opposed to it, especially because right now Tyler McGill is that guy. And I think he's going to get more than just one turn around the rotation. I think that even though it is appealing to put Budo in the rotation because of how good he can be, his value is in this bullpen. And he's got to stay there. And hopefully Dednell Nunez comes back. Hopefully this really is just a 2-week thing and he can come back. Now, you've got 2 other guys on the IL who may come back at some point in Reed Garrett and Sean Reed-Foley. You obviously can't rely on them. Andrew Chafin is a guy they've been linked to. It feels like the Mets have been linked to Andrew Chafin for 15 years. Every offseason, they've been linked to Andrew Chafin. They have not brought him in. They absolutely could use a left-handed reliever, though Alex Young has looked good in the limited time he's been there. Danny Young is not long for this world. But I don't think they're done. I don't think they're done adding relievers, and I certainly think they should at least be open to adding a back-of-the-rotation starter. Jack Flaherty would top my list, assuming he hasn't been traded already. I'm trying to keep up on everything that's going on. I saw Zach Eflin was traded to the Baltimore Orioles. The Seattle Mariners have been very active, acquiring Randy Arozarena. And I have to admit, when these trades go down, I like to look at what the return is and see, oh, yeah, it's too expensive for the Mets. The return on Randy Arozarena was not that high. So maybe it would have made sense for the Mets to be involved in talking to Tampa about Randy Arozarena. As far as adding an outfielder is concerned, let me address this Michael Conforto thing. Michael Conforto seems like a great guy. And Michael Conforto will always have a small, it's not huge, but a small part of my heart, right? The Mets drafted him in the first round. He was called up during the 2015 season as almost a hero as they were struggling offensively. He had 2 home runs in a World Series game. He got hit by a pitch that helped them win an opening day game in 2021. He had the game-winning hit in the Todd Frazier game against the Nationals in 2019. I do not have negative feelings necessarily towards Michael Conforto. There is some, he never turned into what we hoped. There's a little bit of that. But I am not an anti-Conforto guy. I like Conforto. But can we all do ourselves a favor here? Do ourselves a favor. If we all agree the Mets could use a left-handed outfield bat, uncertainty around Marte and DJ Stewart stinks. So I think we all agree on that. Can we at least look at Michael Conforto strictly as a baseball player who has put up virtually the same numbers the last 2 seasons and judge him based on, do we want that, and not the vibes of Michael Conforto? The vibes of, hey, wouldn't it be cool for Michael Conforto to come back? Wouldn't it be awesome for Michael to join this locker room and sing OMG and kind of finish the story as a guy who was drafted so early by the New York Mets? Because all that stuff is nice. All that stuff I'm not against. But right now, tell me if you're like me on this, I just want a guy that can produce. So let's go through Michael Conforto's statistics this season. First of all, he's done better against lefties than righties by a lot. He is a better road player than home player, so he's probably being affected by playing in San Francisco. But overall, he is hitting .226. That is a year after hitting .239. So the batting average dip that we saw in Conforto's last year with the Mets has turned out to be the reality for these 2 years in San Francisco. His OPS dip, which we saw in his final year with the Mets, has also turned out to be the truth, because this year his OPS is 712. Last year his OPS was 718. This year he's hit 10 home runs in 80 games. Last year he had 15 home runs in 125 games. The point is his numbers are basically the same. His OPS plus was 100 last year. This year it's on 105. He is not the guy that we saw in 2020 briefly. He's not the guy who had a very productive year in 2019 when he had 33 home runs and had an 850 OPS. He's not the guy from 2017 prior to that crazy injury. He's not that guy. Those numbers are mediocre to bad. Jesse Winker is better. And I get it. Jesse Winker's a little bit of a douche. Jesse Winker, I don't want to say he doesn't like us because I think he wants to be us. But Jesse Winker may not have the vibes, the connection that we have with Michael Conforto, but he's better. And I don't know about you. I want better baseball players. Jesse Winker makes less money. Jesse Winker hits more home runs. Jesse Winker is a better baseball player at this point in this moment than Michael Conforto. If the Mets acquire Michael Conforto and they give up nothing, and even the Giants pay a part of his salary, is it a bad move? I'm not saying it's a bad move. Is he better than DJ Stewart? Yes, he's better than DJ Stewart. But I do think there are better options in terms of fitting that left-handed outfield bat. We have to take the emotions of Michael Conforto finishing his story and just go get the better baseball player. I do get the feeling that we are going to see the Mets make two more moves. I don't think they're going to be huge. I don't think they are going to be blockbuster, but I think they are adding one more relief pitcher, and I do think they are going to add an outfield bat. I don't think they're going to add a starting pitcher. I think the phones will be burned. I think David Stearns will have conversations, but ultimately, I think they're going to stick with this rotation that they've ran through all season long. Tyler McGill, while not great, was a part of the rotation as the Mets were going on their renaissance. So it's not as if he was one of the guys banished and then the Mets started taking off. I mean, Tyler McGill was in the rotation as late as that Houston series, which is not that long ago. It was only a couple of weeks ago. Because I don't know about you, mentally it felt like Tyler McGill was in the minor leagues forever. But the truth is, it was only a couple of weeks. He's going to start on Saturday, game 3 of this series. Obviously, I look at this series now and say, get one of these next 2 games. Win 3 out of 4 is a big deal. And have a lead over Atlanta going into the next series, which is at home against the Minnesota Twins. There was a lot of 2015 vibes to this Atlanta series. Now, I hope it works out the same way in terms of sweeping the Washington Nationals the way the Mets did in 2015. I'd even say it has some vibes from 2019. Granted, 2019 wasn't a season that ended well, but remember that series where Todd Frazier hit that home run on a Friday night, where Michael Conforto got the game-winning hit and had his shirt ripped off. There was a buzz, a playoff buzz in Citi Field that night. There was a playoff buzz inside Citi Field for this game. That is great to see because there hasn't been a lot of that throughout this season, but you can sense and you can see that the fan base is starting to believe, that the fan base is starting to buy in. And though the last 24 hours have not been great when it comes to injuries, and the Dednell Nunez injury is a big deal. Again, hopefully he's back in 2 weeks. The Kodai Senga thing was a major letdown. This team has overcome a lot. And I think this team has started to change the narrative about the core of this team that they can't win anything. And so we got to continue to enjoy this ride. And right now, this ride includes beating the Atlanta Braves' ass. So keep it up. Tyler McGill on Saturday, David Peterson on Sunday. Get one of these next 2 games, take 3 out of 4 from the Atlanta Braves, and move on to Minnesota. We appreciate you listening, downloading. You have something to add, Pete? Because obviously, if I missed anything, go ahead.
No, I mean, I just wanted to give a shameless plug because I'm going to be on the air in an hour and a half, and I'm sure I'm going to be talking to
crap.
Nets.
That's right. You should listen to Pete Hoffman. I mean, he's going to be on at 2 a.m., probably pontificating on the greatness of the New York Mets. And I'm sorry, I've been so out of it tonight. I apologize. How'd the Yankees do? You know, I honestly don't know. I was with my sons. I bought them ice cream. We were doing fireworks night. Like, I don't know what the hell happened. I assume they won because I saw that they were winning on the scoreboard, I think in the 8th inning.
You're a very good actor. You must have been starred in films before. Yeah, the Yankees lost 9-7 somehow. The bullpen blew it. Even with a Judge 3-run blast, the bullpen blew it.
The bullpen blew it. Well, hopefully we're not going to be uttering those sentences a lot over the next few weeks, though I'm afraid we may. Check out Pete Hoffman. He's on at 2 a.m. We'll have another Rico Brogna after this series ends sometime late Sunday night in all likelihood. But we appreciate you listening, downloading, and consuming another edition of Rico Brogna.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Rico Brogna podcast. It's amazing, isn't it? Make sure you download it now to keep it on you at all times.